When my son got married, he told me it was time for me to move out of my own house and into a one-bedroom rental because he had a family now and needed it more. When I refused, he and his new wife turned my home into a battlefield of guilt, pressure, and thinly veiled threats, until I ended up in the hospital with a heart attack. Now my health is back, the house is gone, and my son has no idea what I did with the money. If you were in my place, would you forgive him, or would you do what I did? Read this to the end and tell me what you think. I really want to know if I went too far, or not far enough. My name is Robert Miller. I am 70 years old, a retired electrician from Ohio, a widower, and a grandfather to 2 little girls who think I hang the moon. My wife Linda and I spent 35 years paying off our big, old creaking colonial on Maple Ridge Drive. We patched the roof ourselves, scraped and painted the porch every other summer, and argued about curtains in the kitchen like it was a Supreme Court case. That house was my life's work and her last gift to me when cancer finally took her. My only son, Daniel, grew up in that house. He played Little League in the backyard, carved his initials into the old oak tree by the fence, and took his prom photos on our front steps. When he was small, he used to say, "Dad, I'm never moving out. We'll live here forever." People say children grow up and forget what they said as kids. I used to think they were exaggerating. I do not think that anymore. It started the night Daniel brought his fiancée over for dinner, a woman named Megan with perfect white teeth and a smile that never reached her eyes. She worked in marketing for some tech company in Columbus, wore shoes that cost more than my first car, and kept glancing around my dining room like she was surveying an outdated listing online. "This place has such potential," she said after dessert, her eyes traveling up to the crown molding. "You could really open it up, knock down that wall, redo the floors. It would be an amazing family home." "Been a family home for a long time," I said. "Just a little older than the ones in your magazines." Daniel laughed, but there was a tightness in it I didn't like. "Dad," he said, "we're just talking. Calm down." I wasn't angry yet, not then, just wary, the way you get when you smell gas but can't find the leak. 2 months later, after their courthouse wedding and a reception Megan's parents hosted at a fancy hotel, they sat me down in my own living room, on the sofa Linda picked out during a President's Day sale because she liked the pattern on the pillows. Megan crossed her legs, her engagement and wedding rings flashing in the afternoon light from my bay window. "Robert," she began like she was talking to a client, "we've been looking at our options, and it really doesn't make sense for you to stay here anymore." "Doesn't make sense to who?" I asked. "To anyone who cares about you," she said smoothly. "This house is too big for a man your age. Stairs, upkeep, property taxes. You're one bad fall away from a nursing home. You should think about downsizing." Daniel jumped in, eyes on his hands. "Dad, we've been looking at some really nice apartments for seniors, 1-bedroom places, elevator, community events. You'd have people around, and—" He took a breath. "And honestly, this house is exactly what we need right now. We want to start a family." There it was, not even wrapped in nice paper, just dropped on the table. "You want my house," I said. "So I'm supposed to move into a rental so you can play king and queen in the place your mother and I bled for?" "Dad, that's not fair," he said quickly. "We'd be taking care of it, keeping it in the family. You'd still be welcome. You'd come over all the time." Megan nodded. "Of course. Every Sunday dinner. Holidays. You'd still be part of everything. Just from somewhere more age-appropriate." Age-appropriate. Like I was an outfit that no longer fit the party theme. "I mow my own lawn," I said quietly. "I shovel my own driveway. I fix my own stairs. What exactly about this is too much for me?" Megan sighed, the way you do when a stubborn client refuses to see reason. "You had a minor stroke 3 years ago," she said. "That's a warning. You're not invincible. You should be grateful we're thinking ahead for you." "I had a TIA," I said. "That's not the same as a stroke, and I've been fine since." "That's not the point," she snapped before catching herself and smoothing her face back into something polite. "The point is, a house like this is wasted on one person." "A house like this," I answered, "was earned by that one person." Daniel's jaw tightened. "We're just asking you to think about it," he said. "We're not monsters." At that moment, I still wasn't sure. But the asking didn't last long. The next week, Megan started sending me links to senior-friendly apartments every morning, as if it were a job assignment. She'd highlight phrases like community living and no yard work, as if that were a dream instead of a quiet kind of death. Daniel began dropping comments in every conversation. "Dad, it's a lot of square footage for one person." "Dad, think how lonely you must get in this big place." "Dad, this place is starting to look dated. Megan could really bring it into this century." They started coming over with measuring tape, murmuring to each other about nursery space and home office possibilities, while I sat in my recliner pretending to read the paper. One Saturday, I pulled into my own driveway to see a real estate agent's SUV parked out front. A woman in a tailored blazer stood on my porch with Megan, flipping through a folder. Daniel was behind them, hands in his pockets, looking everywhere but at me. "What's this?" I asked, stepping out of my truck. My heart thumped harder than usual. The agent turned, smile wide. "You must be Robert. I'm Tracy. Your daughter-in-law was just giving me the tour so we can prepare a market analysis. This house could fetch a great price in this neighborhood." "A market analysis for whose house?" I asked. "Dad, relax," Daniel said. "We're just seeing what it's worth, so we can make a plan for the future." "My future," I said, "was supposed to include dying in this house. That was the plan." Megan rolled her eyes, the mask slipping. "You're being dramatic," she said. "You're not dying tomorrow. But if you don't make smart choices, you might end up with nothing. What if the market crashes? What if your health goes downhill? If you sell now, you can afford a nice apartment and still have money left over. We could take over the mortgage and—" "There is no mortgage," I said. "I paid it off 10 years ago." The silence that followed was thick and ugly. The real estate agent looked at Megan. "No mortgage?" she repeated, slow, like honey. Megan's eyes sparked for a moment before she swallowed it down. "That's even better then," she said. "More equity to work with." My chest felt tight. "Get off my porch," I said. "Dad, all of you, get off my porch. We can talk later, but you do not bring strangers to carve up my house while I'm out buying groceries." The agent mumbled something about rescheduling and hurried to her car. Megan muttered under her breath all the way down the steps, something about ungrateful and stubborn. Daniel just stared at the welcome mat Linda had bought, the one that still said the Miller family in faded script. They left, but they didn't back off. The pressure got worse. It was like being pecked to death by ducks. No single wound fatal, just constant, relentless nagging. Texts, calls, little comments. "We're just trying to help. We're worried about you. You're being selfish." Selfish, for wanting to keep the only place where my wife's presence still felt real. The last argument happened on a Wednesday afternoon. Daniel had taken the day off work, he said, because this couldn't wait anymore. They arrived with cardboard boxes, like they were helping me pack for a vacation I hadn't agreed to. I walked into my bedroom and saw my closet doors open, my suits laid across the bed, the old watch Linda gave me for our 20th anniversary sitting in a box labeled Dad's Stuff. "What is this?" I asked, my voice sounding far away in my own ears. Megan, standing by my dresser, didn't even look embarrassed. "We're trying to make this easier on you," she said. "If we start sorting now, it won't be so overwhelming when moving day comes." "What moving day?" I whispered. Daniel stepped closer. "Dad, enough. We found you a great apartment. Deposit is due by Friday. We talked to the manager. You'll love it. There's even a shuttle to the grocery store. We need you out by the end of next month so we can plan renovations before the baby comes. The baby? I repeated. Megan's chin lifted. Megan's. Yes, she said. I'm pregnant. We were going to tell you at dinner, but you've made everything so difficult we had to move up the timeline. This child needs a stable home. We can't keep throwing money away on rent while you rattle around in 4 bedrooms like a ghost. My chest squeezed like someone was tightening a belt around it from the inside. You're pregnant, I said again, fighting to drag air into my lungs. That's right. She folded her arms. So you can either be part of this child's life by helping us build a home, or you can cling to this place and show us where we really stand in your priorities. Daniel nodded, eyes shiny. She's right, Dad. You always said family comes first. Well, prove it. The room tilted. My vision blurred at the edges, like someone had smeared Vaseline around my eyes. Get out of my bedroom, I tried to say, but the words came out thin and reedy. Megan's lips were still moving, but I couldn't hear her anymore. All I could hear was the pounding drum of my own heartbeat getting louder and louder, and then it wasn't pounding. It was stuttering. The next thing I remember clearly is the feel of the carpet against my cheek and Daniel shouting my name from somewhere very far away. Call 911, he yelled. Dad! Dad, stay with me! Megan's voice, high and sharp. Tell them he's having a heart attack. Oh my God, if something happens, we'll never get... The rest of that sentence dissolved into static as the world went white. When I woke up, there was a bright light above me, beeping sounds all around and something hard pressed against my chest. Mr. Miller? Robert, can you hear me? A nurse asked. I tried to nod. My chest felt like someone had parked a truck on it. Tubes, wires, machines. Cardiac ICU. Heart attack. So that was that. I drifted in and out for a while. Time, in a hospital, stretches and bends in strange ways. Sometimes the clock said 10 minutes had passed when it felt like hours. Sometimes the sun was up when I could have sworn it had just gone down. At some point, I woke to the sound of voices outside my room. We just need to know how long before he's, not safe on his own, Megan was saying. Her voice was hushed, but the ICU was quiet enough that whispers carried. Ma'am, your father-in-law is stable, but his heart has taken a serious hit, a doctor answered. We'll know more in a few days. And if he can't live alone, she pressed. If he needs care, do we have any say in that? I mean, we're his only family. There was a pause. Does he have a power of attorney? The doctor asked. Any legal documents? Advance directives? We're working on that, Megan said. He's been putting it off, but obviously he's not exactly thinking clearly these days. He's making impulsive decisions about money and housing. Surely that matters for his competency. Competency. Like I was a broken appliance. I could almost see her calculating behind that soft, concerned tone. I just don't want him making choices that could endanger him, she added quickly. Or the house. He gets confused sometimes. He does not, I croaked. But my voice barely rose above a whisper. The heart monitor beeped faster. The doctor lowered his voice. We're focused on his physical recovery right now, he said. If later there are concerns about his ability to live independently, we can talk with social work. But these decisions aren't made casually. Megan sighed. We're just trying to help, she said, the same sentence she'd used every time she pushed me closer to the edge. I lay there, eyes closed, breathing through the ache in my chest, and realized something simple and terrible. They didn't see me as a father anymore. Not as a person. Not even as a man who had once carried Daniel on his shoulders around Cedar Point. Who had taken night shifts so there would be Christmas presents under the tree. They saw me as inventory, a house, assets, a problem to manage and eventually convert into cash and square footage. Whatever was left of my old heart hardened in that moment. I was not going to die their way. I made it out of the ICU after 4 days. Another 3 on the regular cardiac floor. Cardiac rehab nurses taught me how to breathe, how to walk up 2 steps without my heart doing somersaults. I learned the names of medications, the rhythm of pills. Daniel visited every day at first. Megan came twice, always with that strained, brittle smile, phone in her hand. She brought brochures for independent living communities and left them on my tray table. "Just think about it," she would say. "You need to focus on your health now, not on cutting grass." I nodded and said little. Let them think the heart attack had knocked the fight out of me. The truth was, while they were busy planning my exit, I was planning something else. I had one advantage they didn't think about. I had been an adult a long time before Daniel was even born. I knew banks, deeds, titles, and how paper can protect you when blood doesn't. The first call I made that wasn't to a nurse was to my old friend and attorney, Steve Reynolds. Linda and I had used him years ago when we refinanced the house and set up simple wills. A good man, quiet, thorough. The kind of lawyer who wore worn-out suits because he didn't feel the need to impress anyone. "Steve," I said, my voice still rough, "I need to change everything." He visited my hospital room that afternoon with a briefcase and a serious expression. "What's going on, Robert?" he asked. So I told him about the pressure, the boxes, the realtor, the argument, the heart attack, the conversation in the hallway about my competency. I kept my voice steady, but my hands shook under the blanket. Steve listened without interrupting, his jaw tightening slightly when I mentioned Megan's questions about power of attorney. "Do you feel pressured to make any decisions about your house or your finances right now?" he asked quietly. "I did," I said. "I'm done with that. I want to make my own decisions while my heart is still beating and my mind is still my own." He nodded. "Then we're going to put some protections in place." We worked for an hour. Wills. Beneficiary changes. A transfer of my house into a living trust with very clear terms. I would remain in full control while alive and competent. If I chose to sell, the proceeds would go a certain way. If I died, assets would go to my granddaughter's education funds and to a charity Linda loved. Daniel would get something small, an amount that was generous in most eyes, but nothing like what he had been assuming. "Are you sure?" Steve asked. "This will cause a rift." I thought about Megan's voice, soft and calculating in the ICU hallway, about Daniel packing my closet while I stood there, about boxes labeled "Dad's stuff" in my own bedroom. "A rift?" I said. "That ship has sailed." We signed papers, witnesses, notaries, everything squares and circles and black ink. By the time Daniel came to pick me up 3 days later, the legal landscape of my life had shifted in ways he could not imagine. "Ready, Dad?" he asked, wheeling the chair the hospital insisted on using, even though I could walk. "Megan's cooking dinner for you. She wants to make up for all the stress." "I'm ready," I said, but not for what he thought. I walked back into my house and saw it with new eyes, not as the place I would be forced to abandon, but as an asset I could use as I saw fit. Megan had cleaned. The floors were shiny, the counters clear. But there were subtle signs that my territory had already mentally become theirs. A fancy coffee machine on the counter that had never been there before. A throw blanket over the back of Linda's chair that I had not bought. A framed photo of Daniel and Megan in front of some resort, placed right where our old family photo used to stand. "Looks nice," I said. Megan smiled brightly. "We wanted you to come home to a fresh start," she said. "And we thought, maybe we could revisit that conversation about moving. Now that you've had a scare, maybe you see what we mean." The second hook came not that night, but 2 days later, when I opened my online banking from my recliner and saw something that made my pulse pound harder than any treadmill in cardiac rehab. There was a failed login attempt on my savings account from a device I didn't recognize. Security alerts. Then a pending transfer request, blocked by the bank, trying to move $40,000 from my savings to a joint account in the name of Daniel and Megan Miller. I stared at the screen, the cursor blinking like a pulse. They hadn't even waited a week. What would you do if you saw your own child trying to siphon your life savings while you were still recovering from a heart attack? I didn't yell. I didn't storm down the hall and confront them right away. I did what 40 years in a hands-on trade had taught me to do when something was wrong with the system. I documented, I secured, and I made a plan. First, I called the bank's fraud department. The woman on the line was calm and efficient. Yes, Mr. Miller, we blocked that transfer because the IP address and device were new, and it was a large amount. Would you like us to lock down your accounts and remove any external links? Yes, I said, every single one. And I'd like a printed record of that attempted transfer, mailed and emailed, with time, date, device information, everything. She hesitated. We can do that, of course. Is everything all right at home, sir? No, I said, but it's going to be. Next, I called Steve again and told him about the transfer attempt. He whistled softly. They're getting impatient, he said. Good thing we moved when we did. I'll add this to your file. Then I waited. That evening, Megan made chicken parmesan and salad, bustling around my kitchen like a benevolent queen. I used the good olive oil we got on our honeymoon, she said. You're going to love it. We sat at my table. Daniel's eyes kept flickering to me, then away. So, Megan said, cutting a piece of chicken, have you given any more thought to the apartment? We went to see it again today. The manager says there's a waiting list, but we can get you in quickly if we commit. Yeah, Dad, Daniel added. We really think it's the best choice. We toured the place. It's perfect for you. No stairs. There's even a little community room where they play cards. You like cards. I set my fork down. I've been thinking a lot, I said. Megan leaned forward, smile widening. And I've decided you're right, I said. This house is too big for me now. I shouldn't be here alone. It's time for me to move. Daniel exhaled, relief washing over his face. Megan nearly dropped her fork. Oh, Robert, that's wonderful, she said. You won't regret it. When were you thinking? Because honestly, we're on a bit of a timeline with the baby and... I'm not moving into that apartment, I said. I'm selling the house. Silence. Even the refrigerator seemed to stop humming for a second. Selling, Daniel repeated. Selling to who? To whoever gives me the best offer, I said. A young couple, maybe a family with kids. Someone who sees this as a home, not a chess piece. Megan's smile cracked. You can't be serious, she said. You'd rather sell to strangers than keep the house in the family? I looked her right in the eyes. Family doesn't try to move you out like an old sofa, I said. Family doesn't bring realtors behind your back. Family doesn't stand in a hospital hallway asking how quickly a man can be declared incompetent so they can control his assets. And family certainly doesn't attempt to transfer $40,000 out of his savings while he's still recovering. Daniel's face went pale. Dad, that was just a... I pulled the printed email from the bank out of my shirt pocket and slid it onto the table. His name and Megan's, right there, next to the word transfer to. Date, time, device. Explain it to me, I said softly. Like I'm confused, like I'm incompetent. Megan's eyes darted to the paper, then to Daniel. That must be some kind of mistake, she said. We never... The bank doesn't think it's a mistake, I replied. They think it's fraud. They also think I should file a police report. My lawyer agrees. Daniel's lips moved soundlessly for a moment. Why would you go to a lawyer? He choked finally. Because I had a heart attack in my own bedroom while you were sorting my clothes into boxes, I said. Because my daughter-in-law was asking doctors to question my competency before I was even off oxygen. Because when your grandfather taught me to wire a house, he also taught me something else. You don't wait for a fire to spread before you shut off the power. Megan pushed her chair back, knuckles white. "You're overreacting," she said. "We were just trying to help you get organized financially. You make impulsive decisions. You're emotional. We thought you might do something foolish with the money, like throw it away on some charity or sell the house out from under you," I finished. Her mouth snapped shut. "Dad," Daniel whispered, "please, we're having a baby. We counted on this. We can't afford our rent and daycare and everything else without a bigger place." "You should have thought about that before you tried to steal from me," I said. "That's not stealing," he burst out. And there he was, the boy who used to stamp his feet when he didn't get dessert. "You're my father. It's going to be mine anyway when you're gone. Why not now when we actually need it?" "Because I'm not gone," I said, my voice suddenly calm and cold as winter. "And because you've shown me exactly what you'd do if I handed you everything, squeeze me out of my own life and call it love." I stood up slowly, my chest twinged in protest, but I ignored it. "The house will be on the market by the end of the month," I continued. "I've already spoken to a realtor. A different one I called. She'll be here tomorrow to take photos. I'll stay here until it sells. Then I'll move somewhere small and simple where no one is counting my square footage with a tape measure." "What about us?" Megan demanded. "Where are we supposed to live?" "In the apartment you can afford," I said, like every other young couple who doesn't have a parent to evict for convenience. She stared at me, eyes blazing. "You can't do this," she said. "We'll contest it. We'll fight it. We're your only family. We have rights." I smiled, and it surprised me how little it hurt to do it. "You have no idea what you don't know," I said. "But you're about to find out." The next weeks were a blur of showings and paperwork. The house, scrubbed and staged, suddenly looked like it belonged in a glossy brochure. Strangers walked through my memories, commenting on the light in the kitchen or the size of the yard. A young couple with a toddler and another on the way fell in love with it. The little boy toddled up my front steps, patted the railing, and giggled. His laugh sounded strangely like Daniel's when he was that age. "We can see our kids growing up here," the wife said, eyes shining. "Take good care of it," I told them when we accepted their offer, well above what Megan's real estate friend had thrown out casually on my porch that day. At closing, I signed the papers with a hand that didn't shake. The check that hit my trust account could have purchased 10 of those nice senior apartments Megan liked so much. I didn't tell Daniel the exact sale price. I didn't tell him about the trust structure. I didn't tell him where I was moving. He knew only what I wanted him to know, that the house was gone, and I was no longer a free warehouse of space and money. My new place was a small, sunny 2-bedroom condo in a 55-plus community on the edge of town. No stairs. A little balcony with a view of the pond. Neighbors who waved when I took my morning walks. A community room where some people played cards, yes, but also where others read the paper quietly or worked on wooden puzzles, the kind Linda used to like. The second bedroom I set up as a combination office and guest room. 2 twin beds, a small bookshelf, a framed picture of my granddaughters on the wall, smiling with missing teeth. Because here is the part I haven't told you yet. Daniel has 2 daughters from his first marriage, my granddaughters, Emma and Lucy, 10 and 8. Their mother moved them to Indiana 2 years ago with her new husband. I don't see them as often as I'd like, but when I do, they run to me like I'm still the strongest man in the world. When Linda died, I promised her one thing at her bedside, that I would take care of those girls however I could, that I would not let the next generation pay for the mistakes of the one in the middle. So when Steve and I drew up the trust, we made it clear. Upon my death, after certain modest gifts, everything else, what was left of the house money, my pension savings, the old life insurance, would go into education funds for Emma and Lucy, and into a cancer support charity Linda loved. Daniel would get a letter and a small check. Enough to show I wasn't vindictive, just done. Word of the sale spread fast. Small towns are like that. Megan called me 24 times in one weekend. I let every call go to voicemail. Her texts swung wildly between pleading and threatening. "You blindsided us. We already told the landlord we were leaving. The baby is coming. How could you do this to your own son? We'll take you to court. You're not well. You're sick, you're confused, you're being manipulated. You owe us." The only text I replied to was that last one. "I owe you nothing," I wrote. "Take care of your child the way I took care of mine." Daniel came to see me once. He found my new place through my sister, who thought she was helping. He stood in my doorway, hands in his jacket pockets, eyes scanning the simple condo like it was some kind of crime scene. "This is small," he said. "It's enough," I answered. "You sold Mom's house," he said. Just like that. I met his eyes. "Mom's house?" I repeated. "The one you wanted me to leave so badly? The one you tried to pack me out of like winter clothes? You didn't seem this sentimental when you were taping up boxes." He flinched. "We made a mistake," he said. "Megan got carried away. We shouldn't have pushed so hard. But selling it and cutting us out of everything? That's cruel." "I didn't cut you out of everything," I said. "You'll get something someday. But not the house, not the money," he said. "You gave it all to people who aren't even here yet, kids who barely know you, and some charity." "Your daughters know me," I said quietly, "and they will know that their grandfather believed in their future, not in your entitlement." He stared at me, stunned. "You changed your will," he whispered. "Because of one bad argument? Because of a heart attack?" "No," I said, "because of a pattern. Because you showed me who you were and I believed you. I decided to act while I still could, instead of leaving a mess for my granddaughters to untangle when I'm gone." He took a step back, like I'd struck him. "So that's it?" he asked. "You're just done with me?" I looked at my son, the boy I'd taught to ride a bike, the teenager I'd bailed out when he crashed my truck, the man who'd stood beside me in a hospital hallway when Linda died, and felt something twist inside me. "I'm not done loving you," I said. "That doesn't turn off. But I am done trusting you with my home and my safety and my future. Those are separate things. You tied them together. I'm cutting them apart." He swallowed, eyes bright with unshed tears. "Megan says you're being manipulated by that lawyer," he muttered. "That you're not thinking straight." "My cardiologist says my heart is weaker," I replied. "My mind, however, is just fine." He left without hugging me. The door closed with a soft click that sounded louder than any slam. Months passed. Emma and Lucy came to visit during the summer. We fed ducks at the pond. I taught them how to play rummy. They slept in the twin beds in the second room and said my condo felt cozy, which is what you call a place that's small but safe. "Dad says you moved because your heart got sick," Emma said one night as we washed dishes together. "That's part of it," I said. "But I also moved because sometimes change is how you stay alive." "In here." I tapped my chest lightly, over the spot where the scar still tugged when I stretched. They didn't ask about the big house on Maple Ridge. Kids accept the present more easily than adults. The new owner sent me a Christmas card with a picture of their kids on the front steps, where Daniel once stood in a rented tux. The railings were freshly painted. There was a new swing hanging from the oak tree in the yard. On the back of the card, the wife had written, "Thank you for trusting us with your home. We love it already." I pinned it to my fridge. Last month, Megan had the baby, a boy named Jacob. I found out through my sister again. A week later, I got a photo in my inbox. No message, just the picture. Daniel in a worn-out t-shirt, dark circles under his eyes, holding a tiny bundle. Behind him, I recognized the cramped kitchen of a second-floor rental. Cheap cabinets, no sunlight, no crown molding. He looked tired. He also looked softer, less smug, less certain the world owed him comfort. I didn't reply to the email. Not yet. I printed the photo and put it in a plain frame on my shelf next to Linda's picture. Time will tell what happens next between us. Maybe someday, when he has to make sacrifices for his own son, he'll understand what it feels like to have those sacrifices dismissed as a given, or worse, as an obstacle. Sometimes, late at night, when my heart beats a little too fast and the condo is quiet, I ask myself if I did the right thing. If selling the house and redirecting the money was justice or revenge. If disinheriting my only child even partially makes me the villain in a story he'll tell his son one day. Then I remember lying on the bedroom floor, my chest on fire, listening to Megan worry aloud that if something happens, we'll never get, and cutting herself off just in time. I remember the bank alert, the boxes in my closet, the way my son said, "It's going to be mine anyway when you're gone," like I was already a ghost. I did what I had to do to protect what little time and dignity I have left, and to make sure the next generation might learn something from the wreckage. So now I'm asking you, whoever you are, wherever you're reading this from, was I wrong to sell the house, lock my money away from my son, and leave almost everything to my granddaughters in charity after what he and his wife did? Or was this the only way to make sure my heart attack wasn't just the opening move in their plan to erase me from my own life?
My grandpa's words really happened. I believe him. If you want more true tales like this, hit subscribe.